Okay, I was tagged by nuts on what my shit hit the fan skills would be. Well, I'm pretty well set up for that. I mean, I've got every skill that I need. I'm capable to do almost everything I need to do. Kind of a funny story. The one day I was trying to get a signal on a cell phone, and all of a sudden at home I could not get a signal. Tried the computer, because I do everything wirelessly, couldn't get a signal on that. So I thought, well, I'll go and look and see if there's lights on at the tower, because I thought maybe the power was out, because like I say, I run off generator, so if power goes out, I don't know it, you know. So I went walking down the driveway, and I got partway down the driveway, and I saw here, it was a fairly overcast night, but it wasn't windy or anything, which is usually when I lose a signal, when it's windy. But when I looked off to the kind of southwest, I saw the sun on the horizon. Or not the sun, the moon on the horizon. And I thought, well, this is pretty peculiar. You know, I don't remember the sun ever being, or the moon ever being that far south. So I thought, well, it was just odd, but I figured, well, I started walking back home, and then I happened to look out in the east, and here the moon was out in the east. Well, that was a little suspicious, because you don't normally have two moons, you know. I thought this was a little unusual, so I thought, well, I'll go home and check, you know, maybe this is the big one here. So I went and turned on the radio. Well, and then I figured out, okay, we had no big disaster, at least they weren't bringing it up, so I went back out with a flashlight, and I happened to see I had an old pickup that was parked out in the weeds, and the moon in the east had reflected perfectly off of that windshield. You know, the angle, the perspective was exactly right, so they had that second moon. But like I say, you know, I always thought, okay, if something happens, I'll be the last one to know about it. You know, I won't be aware of it, and it really won't make much difference. But like I say, with that second moon, there again, it was a matter of perspective. You know, I have a lot of just common sense, and one of the things I do have too is a different perspective. I live differently from what most of you do. So I kind of look at things in a different way. I mean, I can see how you see things, but I see things in a different way, from a different angle. It's like say, I was looking the one day trying to find a straight tree. I needed a log about 20 feet long that was straight. Now, you look at it from one direction and they're perfectly straight. And if you go just a quarter off, then all of a sudden you realize, oh man, you got a hell of a bow. You know, and the same with, like say, if a tree is growing on a hillside and you're eyeing this thing going to drop it, you can't be sure which way it's going to drop. I mean, the trick is to take an axe and hold an axe up so you make sure that you're actually getting a level on the tree, because the whole tree could be slanted and the ground is slanted, and it throws your perspective off. So it is just a matter of perspective. From my perspective, society actually broke down long ago, but it's kind of like a chicken or a snapping turtle. You cut their head off and they don't realize it right away. I mean, this is something that happens, and then years later, then you look back and say, oh, that's when it actually happened. You know, it takes a while just to realize when things happen. From my perspective, things are pretty much beyond repair now. It's just that people haven't come to realize it. You know, that deal with Saddam Hussein, you know, when we go storming in there all, you know, oh boy, we got a purpose now, or, you know, wave your flag, stump your Bibles. And then it turns out, well, okay, maybe that really didn't make any sense. It reminds me of one time when I was a kid, I got an older brother and a younger brother. And my dad was a shoe flinger. You know, you learn to scamper out of the way real fast, so you could never catch him, but he would fling shoes. Well, one time, my older brother had pinched my younger brother or something, and he let out a squeal. Well, the old man come tear-assing in there, and he flung a shoe and nailed me. Well, I had no part in this, But then they said, well, he probably deserved it anyway. Now, that's kind of what we did with Saddam Hussein. You know, like, well, okay, maybe, but he deserved it anyway. You know, but Saddam wasn't fast enough. I learned to scamper. This whole deal with bin Laden, you know, Obama fancies himself as the Black Lincoln, though he never, I don't think he's outright said that, but in his mind, that's what he fancies himself as. Well, remember, if you go back in those histories I was doing, when Lincoln refused to hang a good portion of those Indians because he said he didn't want to hang, you know, kill people to get votes. Well, now, when Obama ordered these people to go in there and into a foreign country, drag a sick old man out of bed, murder him and dump him in the ocean, you know, if that doesn't strike you as a little odd, you know, I mean, it just, to me, that really just it struck me wrong. You know, and then to see people, you know, really delighted about this, I mean, that, you can't be any wronger than that, but yet everybody was really happy about it. But there we had our enemy. We had, you know, somebody we could blame all our troubles on, a scapegoat, you know, and he was the man. I'm not saying he was a good man, I'm just saying we went about this in a really, really bad way. But every time somebody starts, you know, waving flags and thumping on Bibles, doing stuff for God and country, you know, I get real nervous. No good ever comes of that. Never has, never will. I am not afflicted by religion. This is something that is nothing to me. I mean, I don't care if people are religious as long as they aren't, you know, interfering with me. I mean, that's, you know, if it makes them happy, that's fine. But it's nothing for me. I have faith in myself and my own judgment on things. Another good example from my childhood. One time, there used to be this show called Captain Kangaroo, which I'm sure you're familiar with. But in that show, there was this cartoon they would run called Tom Terrific. And in this Tom Terrific cartoon, you know, they were, the one day we were watching it, me and this older brother, and he, in the cartoon they were flying with balloons, you know. I mean, this happens in cartoons all the time, whereas it really doesn't happen, you know. But, of course, I was like 4 years old, maybe 5. So he gets this cardboard apple box, you know, they got the 3 holes in the sides, ties a balloon in each one. We get up on top of the outhouse, he gets me inside of that thing, and this is going to fly, you know, is his theory. And I'm looking at these balloons hanging, and I'm thinking, okay, I have no faith in this thing flying, and I bailed out of there, because to me it did not look good. You know, I mean, the balloons, if the balloons are hanging, she's going down. Another, you know, this brother was kind of a notorious scamp. He used to go around, you know, one time, he'd come back from the end of the driveway with these popsicle sticks. You know, there's wooden popsicle sticks all over. And he'd say they were out by, there was an alligator living in a badger hole out at the end of the driveway. And this alligator would come out and give him popsicles. So, of course, the rest of us, we'd go out there, of course, we wanted these popsicles. So we're standing there waiting for this alligator bearing popsicles to come out, which never happened. But he had these old sticks, you know, to prove that this alligator lived there. Now, the first time I read the Book of Mormon, you know, as I was going through this, I thought, my God, here's somebody trying to sell alligator popsicles. So I have no religion. And I really don't have much in the way of politics either. I don't vote. I have never voted, and I will probably never vote. I mean, it would take something pretty damn impressive to get me to vote to it. But I tell you, normally what this is, you know, they're giving you a choice, but it's always a horrible, miserable-ass choice. You know, it's a dog shit, cat shit choice. And no matter what you choose, you're ending up with shit. You know, I just really prefer not to be involved in it. They say, oh, well, you can't complain if you're not involved. When you give them choices like that, You can't be involved. It's better just to not. I'm sure, oh yes, get out the vote. No. I want nothing to do with any of that nonsense. I really dislike the whole IRS system. And now, I've heard this a million times every time I have a discussion about this. Oh, they need the taxes for roads, schools, and bridges. I mean, that's always the thing. You know, with all the taxes that are getting paid, you would think by now we would have pretty good roads, schools, and bridges, but we don't. You know, they're actually falling apart. That ain't where the money's going. In fact, there's no way to actually tell where the money's going. They're great at this whole shuffling deal. And even the fact that they're using the tax code as a social engineering project. You know, it isn't supposed to work that way. You know, it was originally designed simply as a war emergency measure, and now all of a sudden it's got to be a huge thing. You know, that to me, the government is a parasite on the people, and I feel it's gotten to the point where it's actually a good parasite does not kill its host. They're actually on the point of killing the host. These tax codes are written horribly complicated. You know, it's as much obfuscation in there as they can make it. But at the same time, you know, these people who write them, then they'll retire from the IRS and go work for private companies to try to help you get to understand, you know, so they can undo the mischief that they did when they were working for the IRS. And at the same time, a lot of these lawmakers and politicians are the first ones to skirt the tax laws any way they can. And they know, since they wrote them, they know the ways to get around them. And that always annoys me. Okay, another thing that I find kind of hypocritical is the whole Social Security system. I mean, there again, it's got to be a social engineering program that it was never intended to be in the first place. But at the same time, if you really look at it, you realize it's nothing but one big Ponzi scheme. And, you know, I'm older than most of you guys, so odds are I might be a winner in this game. But somebody's going to take a beating. I mean, I had a laugh when they put Bernie Madoff on trial. I mean, he was running a Ponzi scheme. Exactly the same thing as what they were doing, just on a smaller scale. But him they want to throw in jail. I'm not saying I'm saying it's a shitty deal what he was doing, but I think what the government is doing is no less shitty. I realize I'm probably coming off as pretty much of a malcontent here, but I'm pretty much a hermit, and I kind of prefer to be that way. But I have to say, I don't dislike humanity in general. I don't dislike people as individuals, but it's the society of individuals. You get people together, and it's a problem. It's like, if you ever notice with like teenage boys, one teenage boy, fine, will be a nice kid. You get 5 or 10 of them together, and you got a handful. I think I pretty much offended everybody now. Well, gays, I haven't offended the gays yet. But I really got no problem with the gays. It doesn't matter to me what the hell people do. I mean, that's their individual deal. As long as people aren't radical about it. Anybody radical about anything and getting in your face about something, that gets to be annoying. But eventually, I mean, we'll see. I mean, history just keeps moving on. And we'll see how things work out. But this whole, like I say, shit at the fan, I'll be the last one to know. And the last one to care. It'll just be history. And history is a bitch.